I randomly came across this video earlier on today. It was the press conference for the David Haye Tyson Fury fight, which never was. And it's interesting looking at the body language of the two men at this press conference. Because of course at the time, David Haye was still viewed by virtually everybody as the #1 heavyweight in the UK. And Tyson Fury was seen as a massive underdog against David Haye. I can't remember what the betting odds were, but they were pretty long in favor of Haye. And most people who are in my boxing group, most people who I saw leaving comments on YouTube and even making YouTube videos, they were heavily favoring David Haye. You have to remember that at the time, obviously David Haye had knocked out Derek Chisora, I believe a year prior. And Tyson Fury had just been floored heavily by Steve Cunningham and went life and death with Cunningham in that fight. Bear in mind, Cunningham a cruiserweight like Haye, but didn't have the kind of punching power Haye had. So in that context, people were really doubting Tyson Fury. And maybe there was a little bit of Tyson Fury that was doubting himself. Because when you look at his body language in this press conference, Fury seems nervous to me. I know he likes to act and this, that, and the other, but at this particular time, Tyson Fury was young, inexperienced, immature, and David Haye was very experienced, wasn't as young, was very seasoned. And I do think Fury was feeling nervous. But the thing about Tyson Fury, because in fact, before I go on to that, Barry McGuigan even said he noticed the nervousness in Fury. And Barry McGuigan said that Tyson Fury was spooked in the lead up to this fight that never was. But the thing we've learned about Tyson Fury over the years is that when he's nervous, when he feels danger, that's when he performs to his best. Tyson Fury was nervous in the first Derek Chisora fight. I could tell from the weigh-in and even the first couple rounds, he was nervous. But it's like Customado used to say. He had this analogy between fire and fear. He said that fear is like fire. If you can harness it, then you can use it to your advantage. But if you can't harness it and you allow it to get out of control, it will consume you and everything around you. That's why fire is like fear, or fear is like fire, whichever way you want to describe it. Tyson Fury clearly showed several times in his career that he can harness his fear or his nervousness, however you want to describe it, and channel it to make himself perform better. Many fighters can't. Tyson Fury can. Saw it in the first Derek Chisora fight. I think Chisora was actually favorite in that fight. Again, people have to think about the context of the time. Back then, Tyson Fury was not too far removed from going life and death with John McDermott a couple times. Okay, so this is not the Fury of today. So he channeled his nerves in that Derek Chisora fight and came away with a victory. He did it again in the Vladimir Klitschko fight, most famously. He was nervous in that first round against Klitschko, but he channels his nerves so well and uses them to elevate his performance. He does exactly what Customado talked about with regards to fire and fear. He does it extremely well, and he did it again against Deontay Wilder in their first fight. Because Tyson Fury wasn't ready physically for that fight. But mentally, he knew not only certain tricks from a tactical point of view and a boxing point of view, but he knew how to channel his fear or his nervousness to his advantage to elevate his performance. See how jittery he was in that first round, how sharp he was. That's what nerves and fear does to Tyson Fury. It makes him a better fighter. See, not all fighters respond to nerves that well. Some fighters need to be calmed down in order to get the best performance out of themselves. But other fighters need to feel nervous. They need to feel a sense of danger. And Tyson Fury seems to be one of them guys. It kind of reminds me of Nigel Benn. Nigel Benn always used to say that to get the best out of himself, he needed to have an opponent who put the fear of God in him. And Tyson Fury is kind of like that as well. Yeah. Some people call it a buzz fighter, but I think more accurate is just a fighter who thrives on fear, kind of like Nigel Benn. When he feels threatened, you're going to see the best of him. And I personally wonder whether the very best version of Tyson Fury was taken away from us, that we never got to see him. Because I've never seen Tyson Fury in aesthetically as good a shape as he was in the lead up to the Haye fight. Now here he was a bit heavy, but a couple weeks before the fight, he was doing interviews. There was pictures from his training camp coming out. I've never seen Fury in such good shape before or since. Not even for the Klitschko fight was he in such good aesthetic shape as he was for David Haye. I wonder whether he was going to pull out a very, very special performance that night. You know, given what happened afterwards, his ability to rise to the occasion and channel his fear, his nervousness to elevate in his performances. Perhaps David Haye's career might have been ended that night rather than several years later against Tony Bellew. And this was still a very dangerous version of David Haye. You know, this was much better than the David Haye who fought Bellew years later. But maybe Tyson Fury, you know, was going to produce something very special. Very unfortunate that it didn't happen, because from a style point of view, it would have been real interesting. Again, Fury, a big underdog at the time. Fury, as is the case with so many top-level fighters, has a special kind of mentality. Now, of course, there is a weakness in Tyson Fury's mentality, and that's his erraticness, if that's even a word. But the fact that he's erratic, the fact that there's not a lot of stability there emotionally, that's the problem with Tyson Fury. Because when a guy is mentally erratic, it leads to inconsistency in his performances and even in his training. That's the weakness that Fury has mentally. But there's certainly no weakness there as far as fearing opponents or anything like that, because he just uses that fear to make himself better. I think he was nervous in the lead up to the Haye fight, and he used that nervousness to get himself in incredible condition and get himself insanely sharp in the gym. By the time it was like, you know, a week or two away from the fight, Fury's whole demeanor was different. He was in fight mode. He looked mean for that David Haye fight. He looked so focused, you know, and he was so bitterly disappointed when David Haye pulled out, you know. So, fight that never was, a fight that I wish we would have actually seen. Yeah, just a trip down memory lane with you guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. David Haye versus Tyson Fury. Maybe you've got a different interpretation of their body language here. I know Fury is trying to play the clown, and he basically says here that he's too nervous to look at David Haye in the eye. That's why he's got sunglasses on. And he makes a joke of it. I actually think that it was him telling truth in jest. I think he was genuinely nervous in David Haye's presence and didn't want to look at him. And that genuinely is why he had the glasses on. He was just making a joke of it so people wouldn't think it. But I think that's genuinely what was going on there. But that's Tyson Fury's way of dealing with that nervousness at the time, trying to make light of it, because it not only convinces others that it's not only an attempt to convince others that he's not nervous, but it's also a way to diffuse the tension in his own mind. Now, Tyson Fury might not be thinking this on a conscious level, but subconsciously, I think this was what was going on with him. Again, at the time, he was relatively inexperienced. He'd just gone life and death with Cunningham. Tyson wasn't thought of as highly then as he is now by the majority of boxing fans, and understandably so. And he probably wasn't thought of as highly in his own mind as he is now, given all he's achieved and proved. So I personally think he was nervous here, but there were certain psychological mechanisms at play where Tyson Fury was overcoming his nervousness and learning to become comfortable in the lead up to this fight, or at least comfortable enough to produce potentially a great performance. So, yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys think. have a watch of this press conference. It does bring back fond memories. Let me know, people. It's happening. I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.